So I think you need a little bit more practice. So why don't we do that? Here we go. We've got a cubed root here, right? So again, ignore the 3 up front here. We're going to play with that afterwards. But remember, you're looking for triplets now. So break the 8 down. 8 breaks down. It's really nice. 2 times 4, and of course, 2 times 2 times 2. So there's your triplet right there with nothing left. So take that, pull that out. So here's the original 3. Take one of those out. Okay, that's a 2. Now start attacking this. That's a to the power 4 to the root of 3. That's 4/3. If you think about that, that equals to 1 and 1/3. So in other words, you've got a out with a 1. So a with a 1, okay, right? And you've got 1 a left under the 3 radical sign. Okay, so clean this up now. 3 times 2, that's 6 times a is a cubed root of a, and that's how it works, right? Now, I know I've got this word here. I'll get back to it as soon as I finish this section off. All right, let's go look at it again. Now again, you're looking for cube roots. Break down the 24. You know and I know that 24 is 8 times 3. Break this down. Well, 8 you should know is 2 times 2 times 2 by now. That's just too easy. Times 3. So there's your triplet that you're going to pull out. Okay, so there's the 2. There's what's left underneath the cubed root radical sign. Okay, now start dealing with the x to the 5. X to the 5 can be written as x to the 5 power over the root, which is, if you think about it, 1 and 2/3. Ah, interesting. So that means you're going to have 1x left behind, and you're going to have this x to the 2/3 left behind. Okay, so x to the 1 you can pull out. There's the x to the 1. That's fine. But you have x to the 2/3 left behind. So what do you write? There's the cubed root. Just write it backwards. There's the root. There's the power. There's the cubed root of x squared. Bring this together. 2 and x go together to give you 2x. Cubed root 3 and cubed root x squared gives you the cubed root of 3x squared. Now, the only thing that I haven't dealt with so far is this thing called restrictions. And what do I mean by restrictions? Well, think about it. If you've got a square root of a number, you can't take a square root of a negative. That's a restriction. When you're dealing with cube roots, there's really no restrictions at all. But when you're dealing with square roots, there's tons of restrictions. So you won't see one in this one, but if you go back to the previous podcast, which was here, take a look at what you have as final answers. This was our final answer from the previous podcast. That x cannot be negative. It can't be a negative. So that's your restriction. You have to say, okay, that x, you can't be negative. Well, you can't just say, x, you can't be negative. So here's how you do this. You take what's underneath the radical sign, right here. Take whatever's underneath that, which is cube or square root of 3x, and say 3x, you can't be negative, which means you have to be greater than or equal to 0. And all you got to do now is solve. Divide by 3, divide by 3, that cancels, leaving you x has to be greater than or equal to 0. There's your restriction. Because if you think about it, if this x here becomes like even a -1, that whole radical becomes 3 times -1, it becomes -3, and you can't square root that. That's impossible. That's what the restrictions come in and say, okay? So look at this last one over here. Look at this. You have 7n. You know that it can't be negative, so it's got to be greater than or equal to 0. Divide by 7, divide by 7. Guess what? N cannot be negative. That is your restriction. So that's one extra little thing you have to deal with, especially when you're dealing with radicals and variables underneath the radical.